So now that we've explored identity, let's move forward into purpose. There's actually a strong connection between the two. We know that an individual's identity refers to their sense of self, including their values, beliefs, interests, and personality traits. Purpose, on the other hand, refers to the sense of meaning and direction in one's life, or the reason why you exist. When an individual has a strong sense of identity, they are more likely to also have a clear sense of purpose. This is because their sense of self and their values guide their decisions and actions, leading them toward fulfilling their purpose. Conversely, when an individual lacks a sense of identity, they may struggle to find purpose and direction in their life. An individual's identity can also influence the type of purpose they fulfill. For example, someone with a strong sense of justice and a desire to help others may find themselves drawn to tasks or situations that involve making a positive impact on society. Someone who values creativity and self-expression may find purpose in things that involve artistic expression or creative pursuits. When starting Recon a number of years ago, we did so with the realization that most transition programs for veterans were lacking in this key area. There are tons of them that help with the job search or with resources for education or housing, but few were focused on the lack of purpose that so many veterans and their families face after transition. Remember back to the very first module on transition and how we showed the absolute major shift in that hierarchy from Maslow? Well, at the very top, that self-actualization, that's purpose, and that has to shift too. It doesn't change, but it does look different from when you were in the military. Since the time that we started Recon, purpose has become a much-used buzzword. You'll find it in different courses or programs, but still very rarely does anyone show you how to determine it or how to fulfill it, only say that you should find it. Because of this, it's important that we define what we mean when we use the term. Simply put, in our program, purpose is the reason for which something exists. The something we're talking about is you, and the question we're trying to help you answer is, why do you exist? We focus on this because we believe that people who are fulfilled in their lives and in their careers and who have a larger sense of personal meaning behind them are far more likely to be healthy, happy, safe, and productive members of their communities. The concept of purpose is one that over the past few decades has gained momentum in our society. But throughout all of the growing exploration of the concept of purpose or well-being, there has been much discussion, much dissonance, and a lot of speculation on the matter. While the questions asked always seem to be the same, what is purpose, or how do I find my life purpose, the answers widely vary. Because purpose is an intangible notion, it's hard to prove that one has it or doesn't, and it's equally as hard to figure out if you found it or not. As existential as it sounds, though, there are reasons why we as humans are constantly on the search for purpose. Remember that hierarchy of needs I just mentioned? Maslow knew that the ultimate goal, the complete fulfillment of the human experience, lay in finding one's purpose in this world. Let's go back in history. As an economy, the evolution of our world from the agrarian economy to the information economy of the 80s and 90s meant that more and more of our needs were met in day-to-day life. We no longer had to struggle to bring in crops simply to survive. We simply go to the store and set. The advent of modern technology meant that the workforce began to change again. These days, employees don't typically stay at jobs longer than a few years on average, and instability brought on by recent recessions and economic dips and other major events has people searching for higher meaning. Thus, purpose begins to provide stability that we need in an ever-changing and fast-paced world. So more and more, we see this magnetism to the idea of finding purpose. But if we accept that Maslow's theory is true, then we can say that there is an inherent need in all of us to find our purpose, to continually explore our reason for existing and how it affects our lives today. But the truth is, purpose or meaning or well-being, as we can call it, does affect our lives and in multiple ways. And even though the concept of purpose may feel nebulous, there's a lot of hard data that we can associate with it. From a health standpoint, there are numerous studies that show that those who live in purpose or feel fulfilled in life tend to live healthier and longer lives. They sleep better, they have increased pain tolerance, lower stress levels, higher levels of cognitive ability, and lesser decline of those abilities to diseases like Alzheimer's in the future. Conversely, people who are happy but lack meaning in their lives showed the same gene expression patterns as those who are struggling with prolonged adversity. It's as if their bodies are preparing to fight off bacterial infections. And when continued in a prolonged state, it can actually increase the risks of major illnesses like cancer and heart disease because the body stays in a constant state of inflammation and creates fewer antibodies. But what about education? Well, according to a study produced by researchers at the University of Texas, Stanford, and Pennsylvania, students with purpose not only learn better, but they persist longer through harder topics and are more engaged when they have a higher transcendent purpose guiding them. And then there's your career. Statistics show that around 44% or more of veterans will leave their first post-transition job within 1 year due to misplacement, bad fit, or low engagement, which are all key indicators for a lack of purpose. In a study of LinkedIn members, 73 of purpose-oriented members are satisfied in their jobs, compared to 64 of those who are non-purpose oriented. So there's no question that purpose is important to the human existence, but defining it is still hard to do. So rather than try to find what it is, let's talk for a second about what it isn't. It may make it a little bit easier. Primarily, it's important that we don't confuse purpose with happiness. Happiness is a variable aspect. It's fleeting, and our true goal should be in well-being, which is further defined by 5 things: positive emotion, engagement, meaning, positive relationships, and accomplishment. According to Aaron Hurst, the author of The Purpose Economy, purpose is also not the following. It's not a cause like saving the whales or feeding the children across the world, although it may materialize that way as a function of your own purpose. It's not a luxury, it's a universal need. As a human, all those needs, you have them, and at the top is purpose. It's not equivalent to worth. You aren't worth more because you found purpose. You're not worth less if you're still struggling to figure it out. Rather, purpose is a direction that you constantly follow. For lack of a better explanation, it's a set of guiding principles that show you what you are uniquely equipped to do, and something that you can leverage to fulfill your own personal calling. So if we think of life as a map and purpose as a direction, then it matters less where we are going or where we are right now, and more about if we're staying true to our own course. Are we staying on path? And when we know our purpose and where we have to go, it makes navigating all those challenges along the way a lot easier. You don't get lost in the woods because you know you'll find your way if you just keep going on that path. You aren't as likely to fall victim to wolves and other predators because you have something larger than yourself in front of you to motivate you and give you strength. Need more proof? A study by Tony Burrow of Cornell University once took a group of college students onto one of Chicago's busiest trains, the L train. As the students moved on the train from north to south, the occupants became more and more diverse, and the students were taken further and further away from their comfort zone. At each stop, students were asked to answer a set of questions. Either they were asked about a recent movie that came out or about their own sense of purpose in that project. Then they were asked to rank about how alone, stressed, and afraid they were at that time. Interestingly enough, on a scale from 1 to 7, the group focused only on the movie was higher than the median at 4.7. The group focused on their purpose, 1.2. They weren't scared, they weren't stressed, and they didn't really feel all that alone. So there's clear evidence that a focus on purpose is highly beneficial, but still a little bit hard to get your mind wrapped around. And it's not easy. It requires a lot of self-introspection, work that no one else can do for you, and work that is, frankly, really easy to ignore. But if you're willing to do the work, here's a process that will help you get in the mindset to start exploring what direction you should be headed in. First, revisit your own roles and values and whatever identity indicators you've been able to establish for yourself so far in the past modules. Just look over them and get a sense for who you are at this point and the things that make you, you. Then start answering some of the following questions, but instead of just writing them down as an answer, write them down as statements. What do you love to do in your free time? Conversely, what are the things that you don't like to do? What are the skills that you can do with a very little effort? What are you naturally good at? If you could have any job in the world, what would it be and why? What energizes you or gives you life? What drains you of energy or demotivates you? What have been your interests for a long time? Is there an area that you're already an expert in? What would you do if money weren't an issue? What does your gut tell you to do? What is it that no one else can do quite the way you can? And the biggest one, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? As you get this written down, what you're actually doing is looking for commonalities among your answers, and hopefully some synchronicity between those answers and your roles and values. If it doesn't pop right to the surface, don't worry about it. Remember, your goal is to identify your direction in life, your reason for existing, the gap that you fit into that no one else can fill. That takes time and thought. It may mean you need to write this down and then walk away from it and revisit it in the next few days. It might mean that you need to expand some of your answers or look with a larger lens. Sometimes those in your inner circle can also offer their impressions from knowing you, and that could be helpful. In any case, don't rush this process. Remember, we're not rushing to a destination. You have your life to figure this out, but by spending the time now to start that process, you have a lot more time ahead of you to actually live in purpose. And that's where the magic truly lies.